Live.
I don't think it's live, dude.
We're live.
No, we're not live.
We're live.
No, we are not live.
We are live.
Oh, we are live?
Yes. Of course we are live.
Are you just trying to piss me off?
I'm not trying to piss you off. I'm serious. We are live. Come on.
We're live?
Yes,
Okay.
we're live.
Okay. So, are you absolutely sure we're live?
I'm telling you, we are freaking live. Come on. You need to have a little bit of patience. We're live.
Okay.
Ta-da!
Okay. What's happening, self-helpers? And welcome to Self-Help Yourself, the #1 self-help channel dedicated to becoming the best version of yourself. Today we are talking about how to control your anger and managing, your emotions. Anger management is such a vital component in today's world. And today we are going to lay down 10 anger management techniques for you so that you can implement it in your own life and start making those changes happen. So, on that note, make sure that you subscribe and hit bell notifications so that you don't miss even a single video to becoming the best version of yourself. And we are live, so make sure that you leave your questions in the live chat and we can answer them for you. We have Dr. Abhimanyu, the psychiatrist, with us again today.
Hi guys.
And he'll be giving us 5 of his own tips on how to deal with anger effectively. So before we actually get into the techniques on how to deal with anger, can you tell us what anger actually is?
So anger is a very basic emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a evolutionary wise, it's a protective emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's somewhere where you get an adrenaline pump. You get, whenever you get angry, you're pumped with adrenaline. You get a flight and fight hormones out, and you are able to react much faster and much better to situations. So it's a very protective emotion. But anger is just the emotion, right? So it's a very strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility, right? So it's just the feeling, right? So once you know that it's a feeling, obviously we have to go into, whenever we feel something, we do something about it. So when we are happy, we laugh, we smile. So that's the action associated with the feeling. There has to be an action associated with it, right? And that action is aggression. Right? So we express our anger in the form of aggression, which can be, some sort of verbal aggression, where we curse, we shout at people, we raise our voice. That is verbal. When we can go to physical aggression, when people throw things, break things, hit other people, right? That is physical aggression. And apart from that, there's always, there's passive aggressiveness, where you don't really show your aggression, but your behavior, your nuances, your non-verbal behavior sort of shows it as that you are angry, but you don't want to shout, you don't want to raise your voice, right? So that's your passive aggressiveness. So usually these are the major 3 types that we go through. There are again another, I think, how many?
There are maybe like 10 or 13 types of aggression that we tend to look at. Right. But basically what you need to understand is anger is more or less the feeling, and aggression is the behavior that is acted out.
Right.
Yeah.
So what else? What do we start with?
So I would like to give you a little bit of an understanding as to, why we tend to feel angry. The thing is, when it comes to anger, it's at the end of the day, it's actually an emotion, and you do have healthy and unhealthy emotions, but all emotions are necessary because they perform, a certain action, or they guide our behavior in a certain manner. And it's very important to acknowledge this and to understand that anger is necessary. So that is probably the first thing that you need to be aware of, that anger is necessary. We need anger in our lives. And if we don't use this anger in the right manner, if we don't, use our resources to guide it in the right way, then it creates problems. But it is necessary. That's the most important thing. So, on that note, it's important to recognize when anger happens, and that anger can happen to anyone,
Right.
but how they show it and how they express it, that really can vary between people.
Right.
So this is probably the most important aspect of anger, is that how you actually show it, how it expresses itself, that is the most important thing. So when do you feel angry? That is something that you need to understand.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about, what happens in the brain actually when we get angry?
Right. So I think before we do that, we should let them know what we are going to cover in this video.
Yeah.
So we started with by telling you what is anger and what is aggression, and what other things that we will be covering would be when do we get angry, why do we get angry, right? And then we will move on to how not to get angry, right? How to control that anger, prevent it from occurring, and then would be what are the outlets you can have for that anger.
Yes.
Yeah? And last and finally, I think which is something that everyone would definitely want to listen to, because we do get angry at times and we do start acting out and becoming aggressive. So what to do post that? We do get angry at times, we do express ourselves, so what do we do after that? So that is one point that we will be covering. So yeah, so basically when it comes to the biology, uh, all our emotions are inside these like tiny little parts in our brain, which is the amygdala. So that's called the amygdala. It's a tiny little, literally like the size of an almond, tiny little things, but they control all our emotions, right? So that's where anger generates from, right? But so anger is not necessarily bad, is what we've been trying to say till now, and it's true because when you get angry, you push yourself beyond the limit, which is needed as a survival, right? For the survival. But what happens is when the amygdala is activated when we get angry, we don't really think before we act. It's literally like a spinal reflex, even though it's coming from the brain. It's a spinal reflex, so it's an immediate reaction.
Yeah.
Before our higher centers of the brain is what I would like to say. Higher centers of the brain are able to control our reactions, or able to make us understand that what we may be doing is wrong. We just snap react to it. So it's like snap, and we have done something. We might regret it later. We may not regret it later. We might feel guilty about it, but it just happens so fast that
I can think of a couple of occasions at least when that's happened to me.
Yeah, so can I.
Yeah. Okay. So can you tell us about how having anger or getting angry constantly over a long period of time tends to affect how you behave in other situations? Can you tell us about the biology behind that?
So what happens is when you get angry repeatedly, a very simple thing happens. So anger and fear are very closely associated. So you will see a lot of times that when people are scared, instead of acting scared, they get angry. And we don't understand what is happening, because we think that, okay, we didn't say anything which should provoke them so much, but they may be probably just fearful, or you have said something which has touched a chord and they just react very angrily. So every time we get angry or we get scared, what happens is all our muscles tense up, right? We are preparing for a event where we have to survive. That is the basic, as I was telling you, that's the basic evolutionary aspect. So whenever that happens, all this tension in our muscles is definitely bad for us. I mean, no one wants to feel tense. You get pains, you get aches, and you get headaches. And being angry long term, from an emotional point of view, you are harming your relationships. Definitely. You end up screwing up a lot of relationships because of that. And I don't just mean a boyfriend girlfriend or a husband wife relationship. Even with your parents, with your friends, with anyone, you just end up messing those up. And along with that, if you want me to go more for biologically, the more angry you are, the more hair neck your response will be. So for anything, you react so fast and so hard to any little thing, whether it be fear, whether it be sadness, whether it be this thing. And having so much of emotions is never good for you. You always need to pause before you do something. So
And this is one of the things that I'll be elaborating upon as we move along with these anger management techniques, is how it can actually shape your emotions, and start affecting your relationships, and how you can you know flip that around and make a change in your life. So firstly, I wanted to tell you a little bit about how do you start going about creating a change when it comes to anger. How do you start approaching this problematic behavior? Guys, remember that this is live and you can leave your questions for us on the live chat. So keep leaving those questions and we'll keep answering them when the time comes. So make sure you leave your questions on the live chat for any of us. Right. So coming to the very first thing, how do you control your anger? Well, you need to develop the right mindset, and it's really important to acknowledge which situations that you're in, and whom you're with. These are very important things. So what situations you, do you usually find yourself getting angry in? These are all things that you need to understand and start labeling those emotions. So this is probably the first step that you need to do, is labeling your emotions, understanding what emotions you're actually feeling. This starts off with understanding where anger originates. Anger, according to uh, Robert Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions, I'll link that up later in the description box below. Do check that out. Is it's the it's secondary emotion to rage, secondary emotion to rage as well as loathing. So it's very important to consider this, that you are labeling your emotions constantly. So understand that anger and loathing have a very close relationship, and along with that, when fear tends to arise, this tends to compound the issue so much more, right? So even though it's an evolutionary mechanism, it's always important to understand that anger can be controlled, and if we tend to recognize it, then it becomes all that much easier to overcome the anger in itself, right? So on that note, developing the right mindset, it's important to understand that if you are an angry person, make sure that you have the right mindset when it comes to tackling it, and that comes from creating a commitment that you will try and create a change in your life.
Yeah, I think more importantly it is that that they need to know that even you might be the angriest person on this whole planet or whatever, but it is possible to change. You can't just be like, no, I'm an angry guy and I'm not going to. It's not possible for me to change. I'm just angry. People have to live with it. No, why not try to change? You can change. I mean, you've seen so many people change. I'm pretty sure we were much angrier when we were younger, totally. And now I don't know, we don't feel that angry. So age is one thing that itself sets it right. Plus, I think giving it a try does no harm. It just helps you.
Yep.
So yeah, Vikram, please.
Yeah. So on that note, we were talking about developing the right mindset. So understanding that once you label this emotion of anger and which situations it's arising in, you need to get, you need to commit to the fact that you want to create a change in your life. That anger is a problematic emotion. You have recognized it, and now you want to start making the right changes. Yep. So it starts from here, how you think about anger and how you feel about it. Yep. And that need to create a change and improve your relationships. Yep. This is very important. So guys, make sure those questions keep coming on the live chat, okay? And we'll answer them in some time, right? So what situations do you typically get angry in? We want to know, so that we can give you the solutions to your problems. So make sure you leave us your questions. Now, coming to the next point. So now we have understood that we need to create a change and that we have to stay with that change, and it will be a progressive change that ultimately, takes us to, where we want to get when it comes to anger. So we do that by the second step, and that is developing emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Can you tell me what emotional intelligence is?
So, so emotional intelligence. So we all know what simple intelligence is, right? So it's basically how we perform in, in our subjects in school, arithmetic, English, whatever it is, whatever the subjects are in school. How we perform at that, and simple measure for that becomes your IQ, which is your intelligence quotient. Right? When it comes to emotions, we can do a similar thing when it comes to emotions, emotional intelligence. So this covers like how aware of your own emotions are you? Do you know what you're feeling at that moment or not? Then next, how well do you manage those emotions? How well are you able to express those emotions, right? And the last and the most important is how well are you able to understand that the other person is feeling an emotion? That is much more important. Like you maybe be able to understand what you're feeling, what you want to do, but the feeling that the sorry understanding what the person in front of you is feeling, or whether he's feeling bad, whether he's feeling good, whether he's happy about what you said, whether he's sad about what you said. That is emotional intelligence, and there is actually a measure for it. There is something called as EQ, and I'm pretty sure. I mean,
Emo-
yeah,
emotional quotient.
emotional quotient. So that is actually what is emotional intelligence, and I think Vikram here will be able to elaborate much more on it, seeing that he comes from a psychology background.
Okay. So, when it comes to emotional intelligence, as he mentioned, he basically gave us a very basic understanding of the four concepts that emotional intelligence entails. If you want to develop a better understanding of emotional intelligence, I recommend you read Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. I've linked it up in the description box below. Definitely go check that book out. So, emotional intelligence consists of four primary parts, right? And the first one in that is self awareness. So, understanding that you are running through certain emotions, and as I previously mentioned, labeling those emotions.
Yeah.
The second part is learning to manage your emotions. Very, very important is to create or reaching that mindset that emotions need to be controlled, they need to be changed constantly, right? And developing empathy, very, very critical, and one of the most lacking factors, I think, in today's society. I think we have grown more disconnected today due to the whole surge of technology.
Yeah, as we said, people are much more connected but yet disconnected. There's a very superficial sort of connection, which is just I have thousands of Facebook friends, but when I come out into the real world, I have even maybe one or two is difficult, right? Who I can share my emotions with. You can't share your emotions over Facebook.
Yeah, and unless you're sending some creepy emojis.
It's just something people need to understand. I
Yeah.
think. I mean, there's too much of information on Facebook.
Yeah, it's not a social network. It's an anti-social network. That's what it makes you,
Yeah.
right? So developing empathy. It's Can you tell us a little bit about empathy?
Yeah, and I think I spoke about this in the previous one also.
Yeah.
So empathy is, as I was saying, I've actually talked about this in previous video, but I'm going to say it again here.
We did a live stream on the benefits of meditation.
Yes.
Definitely go check that out. In fact, we'll be bringing up meditation a little bit later in the video.
Yeah.
So coming back to empathy,
Yeah.
can you just let us
So
know?
empathy has three components. The first one being that you are able to feel what the other person is feeling. That's the first one, right? You just feel. Okay, Vikram is feeling pain here. I feel that pain. He's in pain. I can understand that he's in pain. I get it. He's in pain. That's the first part.
But I'm the one who's in pain. How could you possibly experience the same pain?
So there's a concept, again, this comes from an evolutionary concept, and there are a couple of research papers on this also. Something called as mirror neurons.
Okay.
So as a species, we have certain neurons which fire simultaneously when we see the same emotion or when we see someone going through the same thing. So I don't think many times, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but when you're feeding someone, especially a kid, when you're feeding a kid, we open our mouth as if we're going to chew it because we want the kid to do the same. So that's a very unconscious way where we activate the kid's mirror neurons. So similar thing happens in emotions. we sort of, whenever we see someone in pain or see someone being sad, we do get the feeling of sadness. You have to be a really, really heartless person, and you have to be in very control of your emotions to be unable to feel sadness from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
The next part is understanding that okay,
Mm-hmm.
why is he sad? Why is he in pain? Why is he happy? That's the understanding part. And the last part, which I've stressed multiple times, is the most important, is the feeling that yes, I should do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
That is where you are able to control your emotions. Otherwise, your emotions just flow out.
Yeah, so to create this feeling of empathy, and that's what it is, developing empathy, right? And the last facet of emotional intelligence that you need to know about is learning how to behave with others, right? Very, very important. uh, I think communication in itself has changed over the last few years with the influx of technology that we've had over the last 20 years. We've really changed how we communicate. So learning how to recognize our own emotions, recognize emotions in others, developing this emotional understanding of the other person and learning how to behave according to those emotions, that is what is going to...
Yeah, we've sort of got so many ways of offending people now.
Yeah.
Of making people angry and of getting angry ourselves.
And it doesn't take much.
Yeah. No longer. I mean, you have information at the snap of your fingers, at just, one finger. You just click on something and you have information, and it might just provoke you. You never know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We have so many more ways of getting angry now.
Yeah. So that's what it comes down to. So understanding your emotions through emotional intelligence, very, very, very critical. And if you have a higher EQ or emotional intelligence, that is going to separate you from other people, and in fact it is going to make you a better person, believe it or not.
Yeah. So for the people who are just joining us, we've been talking about anger, aggression, and we have already covered the first point of how to control your anger, and that is to develop an emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Where you are able to, be aware of your own emotions, right? Manage them, feel empathetic towards others, and last but not the least, control your emotions.
Yeah.
So that's the first point. Vikram, would you take us on to the second point?
Yeah. So now that you've developed this understanding of emotional intelligence, you are now in a position to start moving towards more complicated steps, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that complicated to implement, it's just complicated to understand. And once you understand it, it becomes really easy to control your anger, and that's the beauty of emotional intelligence, right? So what you need to do next, which is the second tip that I have for you, or the second technique on how to control your anger, is to use the 5-second rule. A very, very simple concept that if you do understand and implement, you can avoid so many fights. Definitely. And just create much healthier relationships, right? So when it comes to how our brain functions, we need to understand. He was talking about the amygdala some time ago, right? It's basically the emotional center of the brain, and information always gets transferred through this part of the brain, the emotional center, first before it heads to the rational side, and that is the front of the brain, that is the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for making good decisions. But we clearly don't. But why does this happen? Why do we always tend to lose our shit before we make a good decision?
So it's got something to also do with age, right? As I was saying, as we get older, we sort of develop this control over our anger, and this happens for a very simple reason, that our amygdala develops at a very, very young age. When it comes to the development of brain, develops at a very young age. So by about by the time we are teenagers, we feel emotions very, very strongly. But even though we feel our emotions very strongly, what happens is that we don't have the prefrontal cortex, as you were mentioning, is not really developed as much as the amygdala. So the superior control that is there to regulate these emotions is not there. So that develops at somewhere around 25. And another fun fact, that develops much later in males than in females. Females, it comes by around 18 to 21. Males, it comes around 23 to 25. So that control over it is not there. And I don't know what age most of my viewers are, but any of you who are in your adolescent period and you feel angry, you can always blame it on your brain for not developing soon enough. But that's not an excuse to not change.
So that's what there's a reason behind why this happens, and that is that the emotional brain is much more powerful and reacts much faster, up to 80,000 times faster than your rational brain. And this is why you tend to react emotionally first than reacting rationally. You don't make good decisions. It's because of this reason.
Yep.
Right? So having that understanding is very critical, that my emotional brain is more powerful and can tend to cloud my judgment before I actually make a good and clean call, a decision that actually fits the situation.
Just to add on to that point, there's another thing that you can do along with the 5-second rule, and I think that we'll make that the third point, is making of fists, right? So when we get angry, we automatically, so there are different releases. As I said, our muscles tense up. So in sort of, you are preparing that, okay, my muscle is going to tense up. So you automatically just tense up your muscles and then you release it. So you tense them up and then you just release it, so that your brain goes through a very, you've tricked your brain into thinking that I've already gotten angry and I've let it go. Even subconsciously, just doing this action means that you're letting things go.
Okay.
Right? You're letting things go. And so that is actually also along with the 5-second rule. If that
I think we haven't told them exactly what the 5-second rule is yet.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry.
So the 5-second rule is basically every time you get angry is to stop and count to 5. That's
Very
it.
Simple.
Very simple. Just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By doing this, what happens is your emotional brain has already, received the information. It's already been shifted to the rational side of the brain. So now you're already in a position to where, you don't have to react angrily. Yes. Or you can't react angrily because the information has reached, the decision-making part of your brain. And now you don't have to react strongly.
And if you have a problem in counting 1, 2, 3, you can always go Ross and go 1 Mississippi,
2 Mississippi,
3 Mississippi. So along with that, even despite the counting, if it doesn't happen, or along with the counting itself, you can go ahead and just make fists and release it, and that helps quite a lot. So I think we've covered 3 points.
Yeah. So right? Basically, develop the right mindset. Get committed towards creating a change. Right? Creating a change, that anger is an emotion that is, there to guide you, is problematic under certain situations and that needs to change. Develop your emotional intelligence by understanding your emotions in a much better manner, developing self-awareness and understanding other people's emotions, and developing that empathy that is so critical. Yeah. Using the 5-second rule every single time that you get angry, a very powerful way to overcome your anger.
And very simple.
Yeah, extremely simple. Yeah. I think that is probably the easiest step that you're going to be taking away from today's video. Right. So if you're just joining us, again, we've been talking about anger and how you can overcome it using 10 simple techniques. Make sure you leave your questions on the live chat so that we can help you with your personal issues with anger and you can overcome that right now. So now that we've covered the 5-second rule, I'd like to shift to the next tip that I have for you, and that is questioning your anger.
Before that, can I just tell a story because it's related to what you're going to talk about? So there's this story that I read, when email had just recently come up. I'm not trying to say we are old, but yeah, we've seen that. So email had come up and I created my Yahoo account, and I'd gotten a very interesting mail. So it was a story and the story's title was The Garbage Dump or The Garbage Truck, right? And it basically said that, so the story was that this guy got down at the airport and he gets into a cab, and the cab driver starts driving, okay, and it's a typical Indian city, a lot of traffic and everything, and he's driving down the road, and suddenly this another guy comes and just cuts him off and obviously they almost hit. So both of them are stalled in the center of the road, and that guy gets down, obviously being his mistake. Despite that, he gets down and he starts shouting at the driver, "What the hell do you think of yourself? And how can you driving? Can't you see this? Can't you see that? Didn't you see me coming? I was honking and all that." And he just lets him have it, and this driver just sits there, right? So the guy who's sitting in the back is like just surprised. He's like, "What is happening? Why is this guy shouting?" And this guy starts to shout back, and the driver is like, "No, no, sir, let it go. Leave it, let him go." And this guy shouts and he releases it and he goes. And the client is so surprised. He's like, "What happened? How did you take that? I mean, he was cursing at you and everything." And this guy goes, "So it's very simple. Everyone has some or the other garbage in their head, and they have to dump it out somewhere. If he didn't dump it on me, he would have gone home and dumped it on his wife. Maybe hit her. Maybe gone and dumped it on his children. Maybe hit them. Maybe dumped it at his office. Wherever it is, somewhere or the other, he would have dumped. So he dumped it on me. I took it. Now this dump, if I go and dump it on someone else, the chain just keeps on going on. I took it and I just left it there."
I think this is a very critical aspect. We believe that if we vent out our anger, that it's actually healthy. If we, yell at the other person who pissed us off, we feel better.
No.
It's not the case.
No, never.
The anger tends to linger, and it makes us feel worse.
Yeah, definitely. The feeling of guilt that comes after that is the most horrible thing. And along with that, the physical changes. You are literally raising your heart rate up for no reason at all. You are raising your blood pressure up for no reason at all. People do say that that term has come from somewhere. BP, BP has increased. That does happen. You're getting angry, you're flushing, your endings are all burst up, you're tensed. Why? It's not worth it.
Yeah, very, very intense physical reaction that takes place every time we get angry.
And you don't burn any calories.
Yeah. So, the fourth point that I wanted to talk about is questioning your anger. And you do this by asking certain simple questions. Very, very easy step once again. All you need to do is ask yourself, the following questions. Does this anger that I'm feeling tend to happen in all situations or only certain situations? And if it happens only in certain situations, what are those situations in particular? So you write these down. So guys, if you want this change to come about after watching this video in a much better way, make sure you write down the tips. Alright? So make sure that you question your anger and find out when it actually happens. Does it happen in one particular situation or all situations, right? This is the first point. The second point is my anger healthy? Is my anger a necessary emotion to be using at this point of time? If yes, then use it. But use it in a healthy way. If not, try and find an alternative way of reacting to the same situation. Right? Quite simple.
Yeah.
Right? And once you do this, is my anger helping me to feel better about the situation right now? If yes, then find something that makes it fit the situation, right?
Yeah.
So start reacting this way. Start questioning how you think and feel about your anger, right? And I think you can tell us a little bit about how you can be mindful of your anger,
Yeah,
right?
I think that
so
would be the best
this would be a very important, and very helpful technique to tie in with questioning your anger, is to be mindful about how you feel about your anger at a particular point of time.
So in the last video that we did talk about something called as loving kindness meditation.
Yes.
Just as a recap, I'll tell you. So it consisted of 4 things that we do. First thing was feeling a loving feeling for self. then was feeling a loving feeling for your close friends, close family, then was a loving kindness towards your neutral people, people you work with, people you interact with every day, and the last thing was for the people that you initially hated but would not by the end of this meditation. Okay, and mindfulness, as we said, was an awareness, just an awareness of each of your thoughts. So when you practice these meditations, what happens is that you build an awareness. That was the first point that you actually said in emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
You build an awareness. You're very aware that, okay, now I am getting angry. Once you catch it at an early stage, you can apply your 5-second rule, you can apply your fist, because once it reaches the peak, then it's brain, it's the amygdala that's going to just push it. You can't really get a superior center, so you have to catch it at an early stage like any other thing. So the more earlier you're aware that you're angry, the easier it is.
And you can actually tell yourself that you're feeling angry at this point of time, and this is what we call cognitive mindfulness.
Yes.
It's actually being aware of your thoughts as they happen, and you tell yourself these particular statements that I am feeling angry right now.
Yeah.
So very, very it's affirming what you're actually feeling.
And it's not very easy to do that. That's why I actually kept it as one of the last points to discuss, because mindfulness is not an easy thing to develop. It's very, very difficult. So, but just we've told this multiple times in the previous video. Just start with any sort of meditation that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Damn sure it will help you out even in this.
Yeah. So, how do you control anger? Well, that's what we've been talking about, right? So make sure that you watch this entire video, and that will definitely empower you to overcoming anger. If you have issues related to anger in a particular situation, that would make it more relevant, and it would be more helpful to you.
Yeah.
Right. So make sure your question is a little more specific. All right. So
more specific
in the spur of moment anger.
Yes.
So I just mentioned a little while ago about how your emotional brain tends to react 80,000 times faster than your rational brain.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have this spur of the moment anger, right, and we'll actually be he'll be talking a little bit about how you can control your anger in that particular moment. But one of the ways that I already mentioned is the 5-second rule. Just counting the moment you feel angry, just count to yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you'll find yourself a lot less likely to get angry than you previously thought.
And along with that, we had also talked about just the making of fists and releasing it. So while you're counting to 5, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do these 5 counts, and it's a very simple thing, but it works like magic, almost like magic.
Totally. Right. So we have some questions coming in. We'll answer that in a moment. Right. So we've spoken about 4 tips as of now. My 5th tip on how you can control your anger is to share your emotions and how you feel. So typically your anger is not only associated with you, it's usually associated with another person, right? So understanding that how you share your emotions and how the other person reacts at the same time is very important. So if you were to feel angry and you were to vent that out at someone, that person would also get angry, and they would just throw it back at
like
you.
Boing, 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 and that's never healthy.
It's a very back and forth phenomenon, right? So again, implementing the first few techniques that we mentioned in this way is very important. So sharing your emotions and how you feel with the people that you're angry with, if not at that particular moment, maybe later on when things have cooled down. So maybe take a time out, go to the other room, or just move away from the person that you're angry with. This could be a very effective way in dealing with your anger, right? So sharing your emotions, right? Everything that you're going through, start labeling those emotions and start understanding how you can, share it with the other person, right? Telling them that I am feeling this way.
Yeah, rather than being like, you did this and you did that and blah blah. It's better to say, I I am feeling this.
Yeah.
This is what I am feeling. Yeah.
And another critical factor that you can just tie in things here is understanding that you need to be patient sometimes when you're angry.
Yeah, I think we do have a couple of questions regarding.
Yeah.
We have quite a lot of questions. So let's start with Mr. Arun here, who has asked. Okay, looks like he seems to be from a. He seems to know his things.
Yeah, yeah.
How about application of facial feedback theory? Do you know anything about it? I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah. I think I'm drawing more than one blank here.
Okay.
So I think that this is one thing that we can cover in a future video.
Actually, Arun, we can get back to you in our comments.
Yeah,
we'll
why don't you just leave your comments down in the comment section below, and then we'll get back to that question.
Yeah.
Right. So, what's one form of meditation that's good for a beginner to start with, and which will allow that person to affirm
mindfulness into a daily practice?
Yeah.
So, I think you should definitely go ahead and watch our previous video because we've discussed this in a lot of detail. But just to answer your question here, something that you can do very easily for an everyday basis is just find yourself in a calm situation. Every day in the morning, you wake up 20 minutes, you give yourself 20 minutes that I'm going to sit, I'm going to focus on my breathing, and I'm going to just not think about anything else. That that is where you will start. So for a beginner, I would say that is where you should start. Just focus on breathing, and then you can focus on one single thought, and you can progress from there on. And I think we've covered that in a lot of detail in the previous video. I think, have you left a link in the description? Or we'll leave a link
yeah, we'll be leaving a link to one of these videos later on.
We'll be leaving. There'll be a link at the end of this, and you can just have a look at that.
Okay.
And I think so. Jayant has asked that: is there anything that can be done in a way to control or relax someone else who's angry?
Definitely. I think the key to creating change with regard to the other person who's angry is just educating them about their own anger. Is not to react when they get angry, is to acknowledge the fact that they are getting angry, number one. And secondly, when they have cooled down, talk to them about it, bring them to a place where they can discuss the issue and what were the particular situations that this person gets angry in. Remember that anger typically does not exist in all situations. It usually manifests only in certain situations, and it's these situations that tend to trigger a person's anger, right? So telling that person those particular situations in which they get angry, this can be the first step towards making them change how they behave. And just to answer that question, one of the points that I wanted to mention was to use I statements, right? To use these statements means that I feel that you get angry under certain situations. I believe that you tend to behave this way under these XYZ circumstances.
Yeah.
Telling it this way does not generalize the situation, and also reiterates the fact that you are the one who feels this way about how the other person feels. And again, this is what empathy and learning how others behave is all about.
So I think the next question is very similar. So I would just like to add to that, using of a phrase like "please calm down." Never.
Yeah.
Never do that ever. Like anyone who's angry, don't go and tell them, "Please calm down. We need you to calm down." No, that will always piss them off.
Remember, their emotional brains have already been triggered, and that emotion will tend to stay on for a much longer time than you might typically think.
And I think the next point would be that what we've already told, that don't retaliate.
Yeah.
Try to control yourself as much as you can. Person might be very, very angry, might be very emotional about what they're talking about. Just for the next, maybe for how much ever long I think people really don't shout for 10 minutes and 15 minutes altogether. It's hardly a 2-3 minute. If you can just control yourself for those 2-3 minutes, you will see that the anger will dissipate, and after that you can move on to making these I statements and telling them that, okay, see, this is how I felt. So I felt bad that this happened, and can we talk about why you got angry? Was there something I did wrong? And things like this will help. And I think very recently we were at a conference and we saw, there was a small debate and things got really heated up. And there was this wonderful psychiatrist who was there. I'm not sure he was a psychiatrist or anyway, he was a doctor, and he just diffused the situation so beautifully by just, something that I'm going to talk about later, by, just saying a very simple statement that, so your point is also right, their point is also right, I also have an opinion, my point is also right. So can we just agree to disagree? Yeah. But you cannot do this immediately when they're angry. So, some statement of that sort where you don't ask the person to do something, but you just make a statement, sort of diffuses the situation much, much more, I feel.
So the answer to your question, Shreyas, how can we control the anger of fellow human beings? Well, you can't control the other person's emotions, but you can always, change or act upon how you, react to that person's anger. Yeah. And I think that is the most critical thing that you can, take control of. And after implementing the steps that we've been talking about so far, it becomes much easier. You become much more conscious of your own anger as well as other people's anger at the same time, and you can react better and ultimately educate that person to react in a better way as well.
Yeah. And also, actually, since he's asked that, I think I would like to. I'll start with my points.
Yeah. So I've shared 5 of my tips. Yeah. Now it's up to him. So again, guys, if you're just joining us, we've been talking about anger, aggression, and 10 simple techniques on how you can learn to control your anger. So 10 simple anger management techniques that anyone can implement in and apply to change their lives and their relationships. Very, very easy. Remember, on this channel, we make sure that you learn how to live a positive, happy, and stress-free life. So if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe. Yeah. So Abhimanyu, can you tell me about 5 tips that you can think of, or 5 techniques that people can start implementing in their lives as to how they can change their anger and mold it into something more healthy?
Yeah, so one point that I've already made was the making of the fist thing. So along with that, since Shreyas asked that question, that how should we, how can we prevent someone else from getting angry? So for any angry behavior, we have 3 parts of it, right? So we have something that triggers it, the way we react to that trigger, and what happens after we have reacted. So there are 3 things. So once we become aware of all these 3 things, we are able to, be much more in control of our anger. So as Shreyas was saying, so always someone else's anger may be a trigger from their own side, or may be triggered by someone else. But there's always an interplay of both, right? So I might provoke you, but it is your option whether you want to get angry or you don't want to get angry. That's always in your control. So, maybe getting to know the person. If you know a person and know what provokes them, maybe not doing that would be one of the things that I would suggest. So that's how we control an antecedent event. So that's called an antecedent event, right? Something that triggers it. Next is, how do we react? I think we've been talking about how to control that, and we'll continue with that. The last part, which is very important, is realizing that this thing that I did made me feel bad, made me feel not good. I did not like what I did. Sort of affected my day, or affected my work, affected my relationship. That realization, and then moving retrospectively from there, moving backwards from there into going into this sort of that what I did not make me feel right, so maybe I should not do it, and then applying the measures that we've told them on how to control would be a good thing. So that would be my second point, is reflecting on the consequences. So one would be making fists, one would be reflecting on the consequences, that okay, I did not feel good, so maybe I'll not do that anymore.
And you've been talking all this time about this ABC model.
Yeah, so it's called the ABC model, yeah.
So guys, I recommend that you read up a little bit about this ABC model so that you can start implementing that as well into your, arsenal of skills when it comes to tackling anger, right?
Yeah. So I think the next point would be that, as I said, that the person over there, he diffused the situation so simply by just saying that, okay, you have your opinions, I have my opinions, right? So similar thing is, as he said, that you question among the questions, if you also have a question saying that, okay, why did that person get so angry? Why did he get so angry? Or why did I get so angry? Both the ways, right? Or why did he say that? Why did I say that? So, trying to understand that other people have opinions of their own, and they may not be in agreement with yours. What you think is not the right thing always. Might be right for you, might be right to some extent. I mean, I don't believe in something that is universally right. There's no black or white. You always think there is gray. There's always a gray, and we are all, twiggling the lines there. Like, okay, gray area hai, theek hai, we can go into that. We don't have to always be either right or wrong completely. There's a gray area always. So accepting that people are in that gray area, and what people say may be right from their own perspective, from their experiences, from what they're going through right now, what they're feeling at that moment. Just realizing that, and that the 5 second rule will help them with a lot with that. Just taking that 5 seconds. In that 5 seconds, all you think is, why did he do this? Was there something? So your brain works very fast at that time. So you will realize within 5 seconds what has happened. So that would be my third point, right? That realizing that other people may have gone through something that is making them react that way will help you control your own anger. And this is especially when you retaliate to someone in anger, when there's an argument. Just, maybe thinking for 5 seconds and not getting very angry.
Okay, so guys, make sure you keep those questions coming. We really want to tackle those particular problems that you've been facing. So make sure you leave those questions on the live chat. So Abhimanyu, you've given us some solid points as of now. So can you tell us, we were talking about meditation and anger. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I think I've covered mostly everything. Starting off with meditation, being mindful, and especially practicing loving kindness, sort of meditation, where obviously you can't do it very well initially, so you have to start with the breathing, which is the easiest thing to do it, and incorporating it into your daily life. Well, it just calms your mind down. I mean, I think we covered that very, very extensively in the previous video, where we said that.
So guys, I'll be leaving a link to that video in the description box below. Do go check it out after this one.
Yeah.
So anything else that you want to tell us about?
There are actually two major things that I want to talk about. I'll come to the one lastly, but one thing that I have seen, in my personal life and people around me, is that they are actually angry on someone else. As I was saying, the garbage truck theory, they're actually angry on someone else, but they end up taking it out on someone else. It can be for various reasons, that that person might have just shouted at you and walked out, so you were not able to retaliate at that time, or he's a senior to you, or he holds a certain power over you, because of which you were not able to retaliate, and you come back and you release it onto someone else, and all you're doing is you're starting a chain. Now this person is going to go and shout at someone else, that person is going to shout at someone else. It's a very bad chain that you've started off, right? So rather than that, the acceptance that I was angry on this person, right? And okay, I cannot retaliate my anger out on that, but I will not take it out on someone else. So what do I do with that anger now? Right? That's the question that remains. What do I do with this anger that I've built up? Use that anger, use that emotion. I told you, it's a survival instinct. Use it to problem solve.
Yeah. And on that note, it's important to understand that we need to have healthy outlets for our anger.
Yes, please, definitely.
So having this outlet it's going to really allow you to guide your anger when it's actually socially acceptable, and perform a behavior that's socially acceptable as well. So exercising, playing music, expressing your anger through art, talking to a therapist, or talking to a psychiatrist or someone about your problem. Just talking to someone who's close, or the person whom you're angry with. This is going to help you combat your anger in a much better way. So having healthy outlets for your anger, rather than constantly venting it out in the wrong way at the person that we're angry with, that is going to take us back a few steps, rather than helping us move forward in that regard.
And Vikram's point about talking to a therapist, I mean, a lot of people think that going to a therapist is like, oh my god, I'm talking to a therapist. it's not. It's like, having a friend who's never going to reveal anything that you've told them.
Yeah.
It's such a safe space
Mhm.
that I don't think we should have any apprehension about that at all.
Mhm.
I think we have two more points to make. One of them is definitely going to be about uh, how your anger kind of increases or decreases with I would not say decreases, it's always an increase with
Mhm.
use of any of these substances, as
Yeah.
I would like to call it.
So, if you're someone who likes to go out drinking, uh, tends to drink pretty often, or occasionally, you might notice that when you do uh, drink alcohol or consume certain substances that tend to cloud your judgment, your anger also tends to increase.
Yeah, your reaction just goes, again, it's the connection, right? The connection is sort of very blurry, and you have the antenna is not set right, you have a
Mhm.
blurry video, you have a blurry connection, and you just bang react.
Yeah. And one very important thing, I think it clouds our judgment as to how we understand the other person's emotion as well, right?
Definitely.
So we may misinterpret a lot.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that if you are an angry person, control your use of alcohol. Even if you're not, please control it.
Yeah. So
Anyway, it's a
being
harmful
again,
substance
be
after all.
mindful about what you're drinking and how much you're drinking and with whom you're drinking and how you react under different situations, right?
Yeah.
So have fun, go crazy, but make sure that it doesn't go out of hand.
Yeah,
Right.
that's very important.
So, can you also tell me about this last point that you had to share with us?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the last point that actually I don't think you're also going to be contributing to it is that what to do once we have gotten angry and once we have expressed it, once we have gotten aggressive. So it happens. Like, you can't always be. You're not superhuman. You can't just be always in control of your emotions. Even Superman got angry. So yeah. So seeing that you do get angry, and if you have shouted at someone, or if you have been, physical aggression is never. I would never say that if you've been physically aggressive towards someone, you need help. And you need help in not in a bad way, but you need to probably go and see a therapist.
Or you just need to change the way you deal with the situation because it's causing more harm than good.
Yeah. So, but if you've been to a level of verbal aggression also, or even passive aggressiveness, whatever it is, however you have expressed it, once you have realized that what I did was not right, first and foremost is the realization that no, what I did was maybe not right.
Mm-hmm.
I said consequences. It spoiled my day, and I didn't feel good after that. Right. The next thing is once that feeling comes, and I'm pretty sure you would want to apologize, but you will not because I don't know whether it's ego or whether it is just very simply that no, what I did was right. In the moment, I was right. So why should I apologize about it? But something that we've been hearing a lot from our elders and from our parents and everyone else, that apologizing does not make you any smaller of a person. It makes you a bigger person. And coming from someone who apologizes a lot, it does. It just helps saving relationships which might just crack so easily, and builds another layer under it which just supports the relationship so well. So apologizing is something I would recommend very, very strongly. And obviously you need to be a little careful when you apologize. If you apologize too much, people will stop taking you seriously. But you need to apologize. You need to express it at least once and get it off of your head that I did something wrong. Anger is always wrong. Like, it's not always wrong in the sense, expressing your anger in the wrong way is wrong, is what I meant. Sorry, I said it the wrong way. Okay, I'm using too much of wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Let me gather myself. So expressing it in a bad way is not right, and you feel bad about it, so you have to apologize. Right? That's one point that I had. Anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, so I think we've covered most of it. What I want to leave you with is a small story and also how I usually deal with my anger. The story goes like this. There was this boy, a young boy, who used to swear a lot. And what he used to do was he used to swear at everyone. And it used to hurt other people. And that's just it. So what happened was, one fine day his father told him that uh, every we have a white picket fence outside. Every time you get angry and you want to swear at someone, instead of swearing at someone, I want you to go hammer a nail into the fence. So he went every single time. He went multiple times, and after a week, he found that there were many nails in the fence. And his father asked him to, the very next day, after maybe a week, to pull out each of those nails. Right.
Every time
So
he
every
did
time,
something, every time he was able to control his anger.
yeah. So he pulled out all of the nails. They all fell out, and he asked his father after this, what was the point of this exercise? And then the father told him that, you know, every time you say something, you swear at someone, you express your anger in the wrong way, you say things that tend to leave a mark, and that mark never tends to go away, right? And this is probably the most important thing to recognize when it comes to anger, and that is, you tend to say things that you don't really mean, and even though they may be in the spur of the moment, their impact can be even lifelong sometimes, right? So understanding that, it can lead to emotional scarring, right? So healthy expression of your emotions is the most important thing, and especially when it comes to anger, how you react in different situations is going to make all the difference in terms of your relationships, how you are with other people. This is the most important thing. And how do I deal with my anger? I wait. I just wait until that anger has subsided, because I know that if things go out of hand, I may say something that I regret, and I don't want to regret anything, right? So we all have regrets, but avoiding creation of that baggage, that emotional baggage, that is the best way. So stop the problem at its source before it even happens, right? So create the change this way. Wait until the anger tends to disappear. Find healthier ways to express your anger, create connections, recognize the anger and emotions in other people, and find healthier and better ways to react under different situations. All right. So I think we've really covered a very broad topic of controlling anger, and I think we have done justice to helping people understanding that anger management is possible, and it's not as difficult as people think, right? You can create change quite quickly, and as you've learned all these 10 tips today, start implementing them right now. Start educating people about anger. That is going to make not only your own environment better, but it's also going to change the environment of the person that you're sharing this information with. So on that note, do share this video with your friends and family members, because it's definitely going to make a difference in their lives. Ask them to subscribe to Self Help Yourself, because on this channel we teach you on a regular basis how to live a positive, happy and stress-free life, and becoming the best version of yourself. That's what it's all about on this channel. So guys, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on bell notifications so that you never miss another video. So on that note, I would like to thank Dr. Abhimanyu for coming on the channel. Once again, it's a treat having you, and we'll be covering other topics in future. So make sure you tell us what you want to see on this channel. It's your channel. On the in the comment section below, leave those questions about what you want to see on this channel, any particular topic that you want us to cover. We will make it happen, right? So we'll see you in the next session. This is Vikram and Dr. Abhimanyu signing off.
Hi guys.